Ladies and gentlemen, we are live as this is the main event you've all been waiting for. Brought to you by Axonius, the cybersecurity asset management company. It's time!
Hello and welcome to another episode of Virtual Coffee with Ashish for Cloud Security Podcast. And today let's just say it's an interesting topic because for me, I get a lot of questions asked by folks who are in the university or colleges trying to get into cybersecurity, and how do I get my first job in cybersecurity? How do I get into internship? So I've got a friend of mine who I've known of him for some time, and I'm glad I have an opportunity for me to bring him on, at least for you guys. He's written blogs about this as well, so I couldn't think of anyone better to talk about this topic. So if you are someone who is probably in university or probably knows someone who's in university, this is the episode for you. But as always, I've got my music queued in. So give me 1 second. Hey, Kaif, how's it going, man?
Hello, good morning. Good morning. Thanks a lot, Ashish, for having me, and good morning to all the audience.
No problem. We've got Vineet here already. Hey, man. Good morning, Vineet. I was going to say, actually, there's a Twitter tradition over here. I hope you have your cup with you, man. Thanks for coming in for my virtual coffee.
Yep, absolutely.
Cheers, man. Cheers. Thank you. Now, for people, I know of you for some time, but for people who may not know of you, tell me a bit about yourself, Kaif.
Yes, absolutely. So, first of all, a big hello to everyone from the beautiful city of Melbourne. My name, as Ashish has mentioned, my name is Kaif Ahsan. I'm a migrant to Melbourne, and it's been exactly 4 years. 2 days ago was our four years anniversary of our family moving here. So, and I studied computer science and software engineering at the University of Melbourne, and then worked in the aerospace industry as a software engineer while I was still in uni. And I'm a big proponent of education and tech, and throughout my uni degree, and even now, I'm quite involved in the community, which to bring more accessibility to students and help them enter the industry, help them better get trained. I think my proudest moment would be working with Microsoft for the student programs which we run across last year, and I'm very happy to say that I'm very fortunate to be able to help thousands of students get access to the industry or get certifications, get that very much needed industry exposure. But apart from that, my love and passion resides in cybersecurity. Even though my background isn't, I have been self-teaching myself for a while now, and I'm very happy to say that finally landed a role in the industry and currently working as a security engineer, where me and my team are continuously working to protect 10 million plus people who use Atlassian's products every day.
That's awesome, man. I think I'm in a way, I'm really happy as well that a non-security person is passionate about security. But also, I was curious, why cybersecurity?
It is very interesting question. It isn't something I fell in love in first glance, right? So it's a very interesting story. So I'll tell it. And if some people can take some morals or takeaways from it, then sure. But for me, it was more sort of me. When I started uni, I was a keen being. I wanted to get involved with something. I'm not sure with what. So I got involved in the Information Security Club. And after a few days, there was an opening of an education officer. And you know me, just a high school kid, fresh out of and then trying to do something, I applied for the role without looking much into the job description. And luckily for me, I knew programming from a bit before. So some of the questions they asked was, okay, I managed to deal with it. And they said, okay, you have the role, welcome aboard. And I'm like, cool, what do I do? And they were like, oh, you need to teach university students cybersecurity and ethical hacking on weekly workshops. And I'm like, So what the hell did I get myself into? So I was this close to quitting and saying that, okay, I'm not qualified for this, but I was like, okay, I need to save my face. So I started Googling and YouTubing basic concepts of cybersecurity. And I would put everything I have learned on a piece of PowerPoint and go up there and pray that someone doesn't ask a question because everything I knew back then was basically on the slides. So yeah, that's how I slowly started getting into the concepts. And as I did more and more, I slowly fell in love with it more. The main reason being I always wanted to make some impact. The positive impact of the work is very important to me. And I saw cybersecurity is where, apart from just the cutting edge, the high amount of new things coming on, which I'm sure is more or less every industry, right? But
Yep.
something that really came in that I had the direct ability to help people I loved and care about, and in the sense of protecting them. So that was one of the main, I would say, incentives or inspirations behind me getting into cybersecurity.
Right. It's an interesting way to corner yourself into an industry, I guess.
Yeah. Now that I'm here, I don't intend on leaving. So
Vinny loved your journey, by the way. So you just mentioned
thanks, Vinny.
awesome journey.
Thanks a lot.
So I think it's an interesting way to definitely get into cybersecurity. So you kind of stumbled upon it in a lot of ways, just by the nature of being a keen bean. So maybe the question that I have then is, because that was just not your job at that point, right? So you kind of became a job, and after that did you go down an internship path, or did you went straight for Atlassian? Like, what was the pathway after that? So you became an education person. You're teaching university students information security. Then what happened?
So I guess it is a journey, and in the sense that I knew that I wanted to work in cyber. So I started to look. Obviously, I was doing all this other stuff I'll touch upon, and they played a very key part. But I guess in terms of talking about a career in cyber, I knew that I wanted to work in cyber, but it's something I wasn't sure how. I guess one of the biggest challenges I've faced is there's so much content out there regarding security. Like cloud security is a very big part, but it's just one part, right? There's so many aspects of cybersecurity. Many people I talk to who are new to cybersecurity have a very one-dimensional view of cybersecurity, where it is just hackers and they're trying to hack into the system. But it's just a fraction of that, right? It is a big part, but there's so many aspects to it. So I struggled a lot initially with what I wanted to do, and then I guess I had this conversation with a lot of people, friends/mentors, who basically said that coming from a non-security background actually can be a benefit to you, and then I should play that developer background card well and leverage on it and build my skills on it. So I guess security engineer is one of those roles I felt that was suited very nicely. So I Googled people who were in LinkedIn, who were security engineers. I said Google in LinkedIn, but whatever, you get the gist. And see, okay, what sort of stuff they did, and try to do some of those learnings. But the other things I've done, I think, slowly made me more, I would say, absorbed in cybersecurity, which was like listening to amazing podcasts like this one, going to lots of meetups back when we could go to meetups. I remember I managed to get a student ticket for the Australian Information Security, the ISA conference of, I think, 2019. That had a big impact on me, like the whole culture, the community, just going there, looking at all those, talking to all those people. I knew this was like super fun. And the student club as well. Apart from all those, I used to do a lot of self-education, like books, just try hack me. This was part of the role and part of the curiosity part. Not that I have I'm a man of sheer willpower and just pushing my way through content. It's not like that. It was a little bit of necessity as well. So a combination of all those sort of led further into the journey. And I guess I didn't sorry for the long preface. Just going back to the initial question, which was did I start with internships or full time at Atlassian? I guess for me as a student, the internship route seemed more lucrative because that is the role I was the most qualified for. And
Yeah.
unfortunately, there isn't lots going on in the Australian scene. I can say apart from Atlassian, only a handful of tech companies have entry-level security roles.
Mhm.
And there's also like the consultancies, the big four, some boutique consultancy firms, the security companies, they have it. So even though there's not a lot going on in entry level, there's a huge sort of activity in after 1 or 2 years if you have the industry. So even though I took the internship route, I see a lot of people work in another industry, software engineering for a few years and then transition into cyber, which is
All
very,
right.
very common. Yeah.
Interesting. And I think I guess coming from a development background, it's also interesting because what would you, I mean, I'm just thinking from a perspective that someone listening in, and this is the common road for any, and I guess a lot of people where
Mhm.
everyone would go to meetups, everyone would say, hey, you should network with people and do all this. But I imagine coming from development, which I guess I don't think they teach cybersecurity there at all. I don't remember a
Not
subject
much.
of cybersecurity. So, what was the biggest hurdle to come from that into cybersecurity? And I imagine, because if you can answer from a perspective that people who may not have done that education thing that you were talking about, where you were
Mhm.
teaching other people, I
Yeah.
imagine the hurdle is probably a bit more, I guess, larger as well. I imagine.
Yeah. I guess I have sort of touched on it. I'm just trying to think for me what was the biggest challenge apart from it. I've touched on the content aspect, like there's so many things people can get into. So a lot of people who I talk to are so like large portion of the people I interact with are developers, right? Because my university, not that I didn't like cybersecurity, I didn't have the option of cybersecurity. Just does not have any cybersecurity degree at all. So everyone I talk to in the club or in the community who's interested in cybersecurity are developers or data scientists or whatever, but have genuine keen interest in security. I guess the biggest hurdle then, first of all, is the content, because like if you even think of development, right? There's so many areas of development. There's like web technologies. There's machine learning. There's DevOps. How do people figure themselves out, right? They start exploring the content. They something like more, something less, and they venture towards it. I guess with security, if you're not having that structured learning, which a university or even a lot of people try to first struggle with, it's hard to get that sort of structured learning early on. But now I think it is much more or less solved with so many different platforms out there. Like you have Try Hack Me, which is fantastic. There's what else? There's lots of CTFs like I like a few days ago I saw Crypto Hack, which provides you like a pathway. So before Hack the Box and other stuff, fantastic content. You have Over the Wire and all those war games and CTFs, right? But they expect some amount of security background or learning on the sort of while doing it, right? Which is very, very hard. Whereas you have so many platforms these days, which can really help. Look, my favorite is Try Hack Me. No, hands-on. I'm not getting paid from them in case anyone is curious, but I just thoroughly love them and use them. So that structured learning is something I think we can now point people towards to, that if you want to learn, let's say, get the basics, and then based on the basics, diverge into incident response, security engineering, malware analysis, you can now. So yeah, that was my take on it.
So to your point, then, if there are structured learning available, so if I'm a university student right now who wants to get into cybersecurity, I mean, I guess your recommendation probably is there that I can go Try Hack Me. That would give me some basic understanding. Would it cover basics like networking or I don't know.
Yeah, it does. It does.
It does,
Networking,
right? Okay.
yeah, all those stuff. Networking, basics of some programming languages. So they really took a holistic approach on um, people not just coming from tech background. If you coming from a non-tech background and getting slowly adjusted into tech, that's also there. You have people who are very experienced in development and software engineering. How do you transition them without feeling bored? Apart from TryHackMe, Pentester Lab is again an awesome resource.
Yeah.
The only difference from TryHackMe, in my opinion, is Pentester Lab is much more offensive focused. So if
Yeah.
you're the things of Pentester Lab is 100% useful as a pen tester. No,
Yeah.
I mean no surprises in there.
Yeah.
Security engineer, red teamer, those kind of things. But also as security engineers, a huge part of our roles are also the blue team and the defensive side of things.
Yeah.
So that also TryHackMe provides. And apart from TryHackMe, I definitely recommend exploring different books. I know you are familiar with Tanya Janka, and
Yeah.
she has apologies if I pronounce her name wrong, but she has a very fantastic book, Alison Bob Learns Application Security. I'm a big fan of that book. So
Yeah.
similar books can really help give a holistic picture of security and
That's
for
pretty awesome.
students. Yeah.
And funny enough, I've got Tanya coming in end of the month as well, so she can tell her story about from that perspective. But I love the the reason I dug into the Try Hack Me piece is because a lot of questions that are asked by people is around. I'm from a non-technical background, and I think the first couple of episodes we had this year, or at least for this month, was around someone coming from a legal background to cybersecurity, someone who was an executive assistant coming into cybersecurity. And I'll be curious to know from others who are in the crowd as well if they've tried Try Hack Me or what else have they worked on. Oh, actually, Tom just mentioned Blue Team Lab is also a great resource with test and practical certification. Oh, thanks for that, Tom. Yeah, that's pretty awesome. So seems to be a lot of resources that are available for folks to start, at least start going down that journey. And I guess not be disheartened by the fact that, hey, I'm not from a technology background, or I'm not from a development or cybersecurity university degree background. So if people are able to go down that path and say to Try Hack Me or Blue Team Labs or whatever, do you find that gives them enough skill to say, I guess, to I was going to say pass the internship interview? I don't imagine it would help you pass the analyst interview, or
it depends, right? It really depends on how in depth you have gone with the content. I mean, obviously, those contents replicate the actual work only to some degree, not entirely. So obviously there would be some limitations. I think lots of people have made into even professional roles with those, because you can actually go quite deep with that. And the reason I mentioned Try Hack Me, because it is a starting point. You're obviously not gonna stay there. I mean, you can if you want to, but obviously you're gonna start looking into different more things. A lot of people venture towards certifications. A lot of people start doing to get practical experience, like bounty hunting. If people are not familiar with what bounty hunting is, we can maybe touch on that afterwards. A lot of way to get practical experience. I had a friend who's like very interesting. She wanted to do GRC and those kind of roles. So what she did is, after learning the basics, she started writing mock sort of frameworks and reports for companies. So she would have Microsoft has this imaginary company called Contoso, and when you're learning about different Microsoft technologies, they use Contoso a lot. So she came up with an imaginary company, and she wrote a whole report. And whenever she applies to roles, she also points to those projects, like, hey, I have done these projects. So that's an example of how you can mimic some of that experience. So you can definitely go for multiple roles, senior roles based on them, maybe not like principal security engineer or something.
Of course, yeah.
But more than enough for internships, 100%. And even for entry-level roles, if you're transitioning from another background or just getting started, they 100% will yeah, will be enough.
That's awesome. And I think it also points out the obvious as well, because you touched on this earlier about the interaction with developers. Depending on the company people are going into, there would be a lot of interaction with developers. I mean, I guess you can choose
Yeah,
to not have that interaction as well. You can totally go down the path where you're just doing
yeah,
offensive
yeah.
security and not talking much. But I love the fact that you brought up that it's almost that there are a lot of options in cybersecurity that people want to, I guess, if they want to
Yeah.
go down the path of, you can go red team, pen testing, you can go application security, that book that you mentioned from Tanya.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
can even go system engineer or security engineer as well.
Hmm.
I find it really interesting that, like, uh, I love what your friend did with the GRC part as well. Like, this is really interesting that she went above and beyond. And I think those kind of
Yes,
things definitely
yes.
help you stand out. Because a lot of people, the way I get, at least the questions that I get asked by a lot of people that I'm helping who may be in university or trying to transition is more around the fact that I don't get interview calls. And I think it's more around the fact sometimes because they're from a non-technology background and that becomes
Mhm.
that barrier
Yeah,
that, oh, I'm
yeah.
not getting it because I haven't done that. Now, certificates is usually a path that people have taken where if I get a
Mhm.
certificate, if it's in the resume, a recruiter would see it and then you get qualified to the
Mhm.
next round, I guess, for lack of a better word. Are there any certificates like that you feel are handy or were helpful for you?
Um, Look, with certificates, it's a really mixed bag. Thanks to my involvement with the university clubs, I had to interact with recruiters quite a bit.
Hmm.
A lot of the times, the recruiters are the people who are handling the university recruitment sides, and I didn't necessarily get always the best vibes from them regarding certifications.
Right.
Obviously, please take any opinion about certifications with a grain of salt, including mine. So. There I, I've seen some certain recruiters prefer certain certificates more than the other. It can vary a lot, and again, this is not particularly calling out on any certificate, but if I had to use a concrete example like CEH, a
Hmm.
lot of people do CEH. I haven't personally done it. I have nothing against CEH, but some recruiters I've spoken to feels that it's not necessarily as uh, in industry relevant in their experience, whereas I still see lots of people getting CEH and using it and even getting jobs, right? So
Yep.
there's obviously a wide spectrum regarding what to do and what not to do.
Yep.
I guess if you're really interested in certificates, I think the incentive really needs to be, you want to have a structured learning experience rather than just having that certificate, and that's not going to magically land you a role, right? Just having that certificate itself is not a guarantee of any sort. I definitely want to have that message across before I give any other advice. um, that being said, I personally pursue like lots of certificates myself, and there's two ways of going about this. I think as university students who not necessarily might have the best financial support available, um, the bigger certificates, when you have OSCP, OSWE, a lot of the SANS course, thousands of dollars sometimes.
Yep.
I think that those I wouldn't recommend people at the early stage of the career to pay by themselves. There are lots of things you can demonstrate instead. For example, platforms like Pentester Lab or TryHackMe, when you complete certain challenges, they give you a certification, right? And these certifications or these certificates don't come at any cost, but you still can use them. For example, this is a very, very practical example. When I applied to Atlassian, they really preferred some Linux or some other background or familiarity with it. And Pentester Lab had this section called Unix Fundamentals. And I was like, why not? So I had that. I did that. It took me like a day or two, and then I had that certification, Unix Fundamentals. And obviously, in the grand scheme of things, it might not be the most impactful certificate, but these are the small wins you can get. And as a student, this can really set you apart. Apart from that, and no, I'm not saying this because we're on the cloud security podcast, but the different cloud provider certificates are very, very useful. There wouldn't be any I mean, I wouldn't generalize, but most of the cases you would work in a company, or even if you start your own company, whatever your journey is, you and most likely end up use cloud. And these cloud certificates are not only very cheap, but they also can give you essential knowledge. So you have Azure, AWS, those certifications. I'm pretty sure some people use Google Cloud too, although I haven't come across any yet. Um, 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 so those kind of certifications, the Azure Fundamentals or AWS Cloud Practitioner, are very useful ones to get into, not just as a cybersecurity person, but also as a developer. If you have that sort of certification, you have that common lingo to speak with and just understand the basics. From there on, you can just take on, if you like it and you like the structured learning, you can take the certification further and further.
Yeah.
I guess when doing the certifications, especially the beginner ones, there is a tendency to deviate from practical learning and sometimes be a bit more um, like bookish learning. I kind of felt that with the beginner cloud certifications, that all you're doing is just like watching videos, taking notes, and not actually very hands-on, right?
Yeah.
So there is a trap of that. 100% be mindful of it. I think we got a very interesting comment from Tom, which talks
Oh
about
yeah.
home labs and practicing things. 100% recommend that if you can. Again, this is taking. I would like to point out that this is. Often people start offensive, but offensive side of things, learning the basics of offensive might be useful later down the track, whatever you do. So I'm not discouraging people from learning the basics. So if you can obviously start with that and then venture out. I was gonna mention something, but I forgot. Maybe we can touch on it afterwards if I remember. But yeah, I guess later in the track, whatever you want to do, there is a certification for that. If you want to be a pen tester, OSCP is quite good. For security engineers, OSWE is a good one. I think if you want to, should I type it out somewhere? Or?
Yeah, that's all right. Sure, you can leave a chat there as well. I can just put that out. I think what I'm trying to get to is also the fact that the certificates are really interesting from a perspective that it helps you, I guess, have that conversation. And I'm going to touch on Tom's point as well, because he raised an interesting point about the home lab. I think having conversations with the recruiters interesting is so important, because how do you stand out? Like, they could be 10 Toms and 10 Kaif and 10 Vineet and hey Mustafa. There could be one Mustafa in the mix as well. And then you're trying to, how do I stand out for that one? Because there's only one job. How do you stand out? And I think one way could be that you have a relevant certificate. Like in your case, they asked for Unix qualification. You went down the path of doing the Unix fundamental, which is a great strategy as well. But maybe I can probably throw a hiring manager light on this. And it's really, I don't think it's been spoken about enough. And so I think it's probably a great time to bring it in. Everyone's been recruiting for a position. It's not everyone's looking for a broad role, even for an analyst as well. There might be a certain thing that they would have had in their mind for, okay, so I would bring in this analyst to help me with, I'm expecting them to learn about, say, cloud or cloud security. So not that they should be already qualified in it, but maybe if they have an inkling towards cloud, I can definitely take them through that journey of making them a cloud security engineer or security engineer. And I would encourage people who are applying for a job to find out, hey, what is the gap that's being filled? Because then you can answer your questions accordingly. You can actually do some of those certificates accordingly as well, kind of like what you did with Unix Fundamental. And if you already have an AWS one, and you can actually put some meat in the bone, for lack of a better word, as they would say, just by having a couple of services that you may have tested or done a home lab with, as Tom mentioned. I think that combination, it'll be perfect for you to qualify any job. Because then it's just a matter of, hey, if someone has more experience than you do, then maybe that's probably the only other factor. But outside of that, if you already have boxes that are being ticked off because that's the kind of role they're looking for, it would be an easy win at that point. It just would be a no-brainer for any hiring manager to go, oh my God, yes, that totally makes sense. This is exactly what I was looking for. And it's not saying that there's a bias, because there could be a misunderstanding that, hey, if someone says analyst, that could be any kind of analyst. That could be a pen test analyst. That could be. So then the way I would recommend people do this is the job that you're applying for as an analyst, whether it's whatever the company may be, just have a look at what kind of team does it already have on LinkedIn, which is great information to have these days. But I'm curious to know from your part now, we've spoke about, I guess, your development journey onto a security engineer and what was the biggest hurdle. We spoke about certification as well. And I guess kind of from a skill set perspective, we touched on talking to developers as well. Are there any, like, for people who may be aiming for that security engineer role? Sorry, before that, I've got a few more examples here. Vineet mentioned deploy services in cloud too. Tom mentioned another free way to learn is podcast. You can learn so much, and more importantly, learn the lingo.
100%.
Oh my God, yeah, actually, that's a great point, Tom, because learning the lingo or thermal industry is so important. So you're able to have the tech speak as I love it, because a lot of times you go to the interview and you're just standing out as, oh yeah, I've heard of that. I don't know where, but I think it reminds me of something. So be able to at least go, yeah, I know that. And I'm grateful to people who listen to cloud security and are probably in university at the moment, because these conversations, when they listen to this and they hear about, oh, okay, I need to talk to the developer. So when they get asked in a development, also if they get asked a question in an interview about, would you be talking to a developer? Would you be okay with that? Oh yeah, totally, because this is how you would solve it. So kind of bringing it back to your current role then, in terms of the skill set for a security engineer, what do you think are the skill set that makes a security engineer successful, I guess, and what can people expect?
Just before on that, I wanted to very quickly touch on the podcast thing, and I suddenly feel that podcasts have been really, really important in my journey. Like I've learned so much. And it's the other side of the coin, or not other side of the coin, more like the missing half, right, of recruitment that I've seen. Even if you don't have necessarily the best technical skills, if you can show your passion and your enthusiasm, this is some of the ways, like you can talk about, I listen to this podcast, I will go to these kind of events, I do all this by myself. It's not just showing the recruiters from a positive light, but from yourself, it is a massive, massive advantage. Like I wanted to give thanks to Ashish and the Cloud Security podcast. Like my cloud journey actually begin with Ashish's Cloud Security podcast a lot. I didn't know that much of structured learning. A lot of the lingo, especially about Kubernetes and AWS infrastructure, how do you scale all those things, those conversations. I absolutely loved it. And we have a dedicated team at Atlassian called Platform Security. And I was very surprised how much I could relate to the lingo when I listen to Cloud Security podcasts, go back into the actual industry, and I can actually get relate to them. So I get lots of value out of this podcast. I just wanted to say on that.
Appreciate that, man.
And yeah, I definitely recommend this podcast to anyone. I'll continue to do so. So that's
and I appreciate that, man. I'll slip you $100 bill later on. I appreciate that, man. I think to Tom's point and to your point, it always makes me feel grateful when a lot of people who have gotten jobs actually were asked about how do you keep up to date. Like it's a very common question to ask about how do you keep up to date with what's happening in cybersecurity. And a lot of people have used Cloud Security Podcast as a way that, hey, that's how they were getting the lingo and getting to know about the industry. And the amount of times that the recruiter or the hiring manager knew about the podcast, that and I don't know if it has played part in it, but I feel it did play some part in them getting the role. So I definitely feel grateful every time someone mentions it, because to what both you and Tom just mentioned, right? Even if it's a conversation of a topic that you've never heard, but it's like talking to people, or it's like being part of a room in a talk. You hear someone talk about, oh, what is this thing? And then you kind of start listening, why are people using it? What's the point of using it? Do I even need it? Like, I think it always through osmosis, for lack of a better word, you get to know of terms, and when you ever face it, you go, oh my god, yes, I heard about this. And then like, oh, I need for my job, so you can come back to the episode, or you can actually go and explore yourself as well. So it makes me really happy when that happens, man. So coming back to the soft skill, what would you say are some of the skills that you require as to be successful for a security engineer role?
I think you touched on it, the soft skills part, and
Yeah.
obviously it is not just as a security engineer any role. I think soft skills is very very important, and I hate calling it soft skills because it's not soft at all. It's very hard to get.
Yeah, it's so hard to
It's
do
the
soft
hardest
skills as well.
skills. Yeah,
Yeah.
like the tech side of things, I honestly think most people can get it because it's black and white. You either
Yep.
know it or you don't know it. With
That's
this,
right.
it is very very hard, and I think this is something people naturally develop in a gradually when you go to all these meetups or have conversation with other people and stuff. I think as a security engineer, it is very very important because a huge chunk of my role is security is not isolation, right? Security is never in isolation. If it's being done in isolation, it's being done wrong. So it's always interacting with a lot of stakeholders, and our prime stakeholders and customers are our developers and our engineers. So I have to speak a lot and lot with them. So for example, when I'm doing a security review, I need to have the ability to break down, let's say, a security concept and speak with them. Like, they are developers. They don't wake up in the morning and they think, oh, I'm going to make a super secure software. Their goal is different, right? So I need to somehow translate my priority to their priority and sort of show that why it is important, why they should care. And that is a skill, no matter where you are, it's going to be super important. Even if you think you're on the offensive side, right? You think, okay, I'm going to be a pen tester, red teamer. I don't need any soft skills. That is like far furthest from the truth. Like Atlassian has an in-house red team. They do a fantastic job. Give us lots of trouble all the time. But a big part of their role is, I've seen, obviously, laying out the operation in a proper way, and then speak with, let's say, the CISO, or speak with the CTO and getting it done. B, after the operation is done, they need to produce a report. What was vulnerable, how it was vulnerable. Having that good communication, written and spoken, is very, very important. You need to be able to answer a lot of developers and security engineers. Why did you do this? How did you do this? And if you can't explain it, it doesn't matter, right? Like, if you, I guess a very, very good thing my manager always says, that it doesn't matter if you have conquered the world in your own little corner. If the world doesn't know about it, or if you can't release it to the world, something like that, right? And I 100% agree on it, like, because those are the skills you definitely need and need to foster. I understand that it might not come as naturally in the beginning. It did not come naturally to me. It sort of came through practice and more interacting with it. I think with like everything else, the more you do it, the better. A very basic piece of advice I can give is, when meetups start happening again, hopefully very soon, definitely go to meetups, talk with a lot of people. Don't be that person who, it's very easy to be that person. I used to be that, like, just stay in the corner, not talk. And I had this strategy that, okay, I'm going to always go for the guest speaker. Everyone goes for the guest speaker. How do I get them to talk? So I would go to the guest speaker and then say, hey, I'm from University of Melbourne Information Security Club. I really loved your talk. Would you want to come and give us a talk here instead? And 9 out of 10 times, because the guest speakers obviously love sharing their information, right? They'll be like, yeah, sure, I want to come. And they would then start talking and expressing themselves more. So this was my strategy of how to have more invisibility around people and talk with people. People can think of some ways themselves. So TLDR, I would say communication skills, obviously soft skills, but communication skills is very, very important. Written or written or verbal. Both are very important. Like in your meeting, you'll have stand-ups. You'll need to communicate with colleagues. You'll never work in isolation. So 100% try your best. Another thing is I see lots of people shy away from group projects in uni. They're most of the time they're very difficult. I agree, but these difficult conversations and experiences are building you up for the journey in the future. I see Vineet's question, which meetups I normally go, which I would like to add because some people might have had that. So when meetups used to happen, like my favorite was Sec Talks Melbourne. That was like the one I would try to go regularly. There's also something called Ruxmon that used to happen every now and then. They didn't have a specific schedule, or I at least couldn't see one. There was also one called AllSec, which used to be run by a combination of people, including Ricky Burke. You might be familiar with him. I think I met Ashish in one of the meetups, if I'm correct, Ashish, right?
That's right. Yep.
Yeah,
I was going to say you can probably even go broader than that as well, because I think, and thanks for that question as well, by the way, Vineet. Because I feel like a lot of people listening in may not have access to, I guess, those same meetups, but they would have related meetups that they can go to in their own local areas.
Yes.
And I guess nowadays, and I don't know if you guys did this, but during the pandemic, I took an opportunity to attend meetups from not just Australia, but from all over the world.
Yeah.
Because it's like, well, we're in an online world now, and everyone else is being forced to go online. But why am I limiting myself to, say, meetups just in Melbourne? Or why am I limiting myself to my meetups just in the UK or just in America? I want to know what's happening in the UK. I want to know what's happening for cloud in the US or in Israel. Like, as long as you match the time zone, and it just means like one day, once a month or whatever, you're going to have to wake up at odd time to match the time zone. But you get to hear from speakers from, I guess, well, in my context, we're just English-speaking countries. I couldn't go for non-English-speaking ones. But if you can go for non-English-speaking ones, don't go for that as well. And you get to kind of hear their perspective on their side. And as I think, Kaif, when you mentioned, you started off by saying you're an immigrant to Australia. And I think a lot of people are, and I think I include myself in there as well. But so we are, I guess, fortunate enough to know multiple languages. You can tune in to some of those languages as well, those conversations going on. These days, I think a lot of people are on applications like Clubhouse, as well as Facebook has their new coming in. LinkedIn has one coming in for audio. So it's sky's the limit for how do you want to expose yourself to conversations about what's happening in cybersecurity or cloud security. But the reason I kind of went down that rabbit hole was for one particular thing, right? Do you find that you knew exactly where you wanted to go, and even with cybersecurity, like, oh, I want to be a cybersecurity engineer? Because a lot of people would just be like, I want a cybersecurity job. And I get that question quite often, but I'm like, which one? Exactly. Them, right? It's not just one. Like, it's not like it's a title, cybersecurity, and you get that title. So how do you normally answer that question? And I guess, is there something that you found helpful for identifying those different kinds, I guess?
Just going back since a little bit, sorry. I wanted to throw in the Meetup app in there, because that's the main thing I would use. So in the Meetups section, about reading the Meetups, I guess please use that. That's a fantastic app. Has some bugs, but obviously you can work around it. Also, almost all conferences have sometimes student discounts or student passes. Please make use of them. You just need to Google. The question you asked is, Ashish, I'm not 100% sure about that one. Can you clarify that a little bit, if possible?
Yeah, sure, man. I think so. I think it's more in the context of, how cybersecurity could have, you could be an application security person. You could be a pen tester. Like, you touched on a few topics that, hey, you could be this, you could be that. Yeah. But is there an easy way to identify what would be, I guess, what are these different types, I guess, first of all, that because you would have kind of gone down that journey where, hey, do I want to be a pen tester, or do I want to be blue team, or do I want to be red team? Like, what was that like for you? Like, what was that thought process like for you?
Very good question. I guess this is something you sort of learn more as you absorb more and more content. Like I
Mhm.
didn't know there is a whole industry about cloud security and cloud security engineering, right? Before
Yeah.
I tuned into this podcast more. So there's a few other podcasts like Risky Business, Darknet Diaries,
Yep.
fantastic one, Hacking into Security, which talks about a lot of those careers.
Yep.
I really recommend Hacking into Security because they take different roles and have that whole journey laid out, and then you can see which journey you relate to the most. When I
Mhm.
started, it did not have so many things. I would say, again, this is just a lot of the exploration, right? I remember there was a phase. I'm sure everyone has this phase where everyone, when I wanted to be a malware analyst and a reverse engineer, like
Yep.
everyone has this phase. Like I swear to
Yep.
God, and
Yep.
I bought
Some
the
way of
book.
finding a bug
Yeah,
somewhere. Yes.
yeah, I bought the book like what was it? The art of hacking or art of exploitation. The art of
Yep.
exploitation, yes, that
Yep.
one. And I read through it a little bit and I was like, nope, this isn't for me. I signed up that malware unicorn course. So as you can see, this was a little bit of exploration. Without exploration, you cannot find out. You obviously start with somewhere and
Yep.
then pretty much venture out. A lot of it is speaking with people, like speaking with people about what they do in their role. Like, is that something that I find really interesting? So even TV shows, I swear to God, like there is a TV show called Mr. Robot.
Oh
It
yeah.
is very, very based on hacking and that whole concept. And
Yep.
I got to know a lot about the whole. So I don't think there is a one single source people can learn. There's so many streams. And I always feel that the role we eventually or the area we decide to go with is often influenced by the media we consume, and I'm using media as a very broad term, right? I'm
Yep.
talking about social media platforms, educational platforms, podcasts, many different things. So
Yep.
for me, that was how I found out about different things and different roles.
Yep.
Um, I guess fortunately, I wanted to tell people the message that cybersecurity is very broad. It's not one size that needs to fit all. If no matter what your background interests are, it is very likely that you can get a role. For example, I had a friend who was very, very interested in cybersecurity and very interested in training side of things. Right? They not necessarily wanted to be the hacker themselves, but more sort of training and that sort of things. And now she's working in a reputed firm as a like a developer awareness and
Mhm.
leading the awareness program. So that's just one example. She learns technical stuff, but she's not necessarily as technical. I wouldn't say
Mhm.
she's the most technical, but she obviously has significant amount of knowledge and
Yep.
passion on how to share that knowledge from others. Right? You not always need to be the one who knows everything to teach others. You just need to find the right sources and how you can amplify those sources. So that's
Yep.
just one example of how if you're a non-technical background, you can still make it in cybersecurity.
Yep.
So that, yeah, I hope that answers the question.
It does, and I think it makes me really think I should make a video on this as well, because I think it definitely, if there is no single source for this, it's definitely worthwhile calling out. Because like a certain kind of person may like a certain kind of job versus another person
Yes,
may like another
yes,
kind of
yes.
job as well. So
Yeah,
you
yeah,
need,
exactly.
because I think your malware analyst remind me of my first job as well. I tried being a pen tester, and I think in the
Mhm.
first month I left the job because I just could not make
Oh
myself
no.
read the manual. I was like, this
Yeah,
is not something I want to do for the rest of my life. So
yeah, yeah,
I definitely would say explore different jobs, and as you find
yeah,
them, you kind of realize what works and
yeah.
what doesn't work. So just quickly, I know we've been talking about different kind of topics around getting a job, getting qualified for it, like. But I'm also curious. You mentioned skills, but what does a day look like for you as a security engineer?
Yeah, sure. Quite fun, I might add. Not that I'm biased. It is amazing, and I think it's partially due to the factor that Atlassian's culture is simply amazing. I
Yeah.
cannot get over it. Um, for me, if I'm trying to say it concisely, I think 50 to 60% of the time is behind different security related activities. So I'm doing security reviews, and when I say security reviews, this can be threat modeling, code reviews, design reviews, penetration tests even, and either by myself or in collaboration with other engineers, and speaking with developers to how to fix certain bugs in their products, security vulnerabilities. So a lot of my time goes into that, and I really like this side of things. And the other, I would say, 40 to 50% of the time is projects. I absolutely love this because I can do a wide variety of projects. Like I started Atlassian with a more research-based project when during the internship. And after that, I did a very coding-heavy project, and then again some more processes-related project and internal tooling. And now the current project I'm working is how do I say it? Improving internal plays and guides. So, for example, I'm now working on how we can do threat modeling better. So what are the what we have been doing with threat modeling? How can we make that better? And I worked on a various other of our processes as well, like how can we do a certain type of test, like GraphQL test better? What are the tools? And create a comprehensive guide which other security engineers can follow. So the project I do is very broad, and it's like a wide variety, which keeps me quite engaged. And yeah, that's how we operate at Atlassian. There's also this 10% of time, which is every 4 or 5 weeks, I get an entire week to do whatever I want, like personal research, any kind of training.
Right.
I really love that week because I do a lot of the cloud-based learning in those weeks, like certifications or just doing some hands-on labs, or even work on, I don't know, writing something, right? So that's how a typical life of the day in the life of the security engineer is.
No, thanks for sharing that, man. So, I would love to continue talking about the secure engineer part, but I only have limited time with you, man. So I wanted to help to get people know you a bit more as well. So I've got my fun section towards the end. I think we've answered all the questions that came in as well. But feel free to drop them in. Continue dropping them if you guys have still any questions or comments. So 3 questions, not too many. First one: what do you spend most time on when you're not working on being a security engineer?
Yeah, absolutely. It really varies. Look, when it comes to non security stuff, it's a jack of all trade, master of none kind of thing. I do juggle a lot of things like uni, work. If people doesn't know, like I still study part-time. So the story goes like I finished my internship, and Atlassian, my manager, was very nice, very kind. He basically said, "Hey, you like whatever you have done so far is awesome. Do you just want to continue doing it until you graduate and work part time?" And I'm like, "Yeah, sure, sign me up." So that, and I also involved with different clubs. That takes a lot of time. So I'm just trying to think. So apart from that, I guess the majority portion goes with me spending time with family and friends. So that's the huge chunk. I have recently developed a very pet peeve regarding investing and the personal finance side of things since the beginning of this year. So I do spend a lot of time, watching videos, learning, consuming content regarding personal finance, investing, and trading a little bit. So I guess that's it.
Sounds good. Right. Well, there you go. Sounds like you and I can have more conversation about investing as well. Right?
Yes,
I can tell you about how I grew this beard just consuming all the content and investing. I guess.
Yeah, I saw you are like an early stage investor now, so which is quite interesting.
So I can definitely talk about that as well, man. The next question that I have is: what is something that you're proud of but not on your social media?
Proud of and not on social media. I guess just developing a very good friend circle in Australia. Like I mentioned, similar to you, I was a migrant myself. I had to leave my entire social circle behind and just venture into a new country. I was very, very scared, very nervous, but I definitely had a lot of people support me along the way, and I always try my best to not get out of touch. So I would proactively reach out, talk to them, the people who, and develop a friendship. So I'm really happy with my, let's say, the friend circles I have, and that's something I'm very proud of.
It's pretty awesome, man. And yeah, definitely some people to keep close to yourself as well.
Yes.
Cool. All right, last question. What's your favorite cuisine or restaurant that you can share?
Cuisine or restaurant? Oof. Oh no, this is so hard. This is so hard. As someone who eats out a lot, I would lean towards Japanese. I try Japanese food a lot. I guess Japanese is my favorite dish. And no, you cannot use that to social engineer me. It's not any of my password prompts. But yeah, I do tend to lean towards Japanese food a lot. I have I just mentioned my mates. I have some mates who we're really looking forward to the borders opening, and we can go to Japan and actually have proper. I mean, we already have good Japanese food here, but actually experience the Japanese cuisine in Japan. So that's something I'm looking forward to.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome, man. And thanks for sharing that as well, man.
How about yourself?
So mine changes. So I think at the moment, currently, what I'm missing the most with the lockdown is Somalian food.
Somalian food.
Yeah,
wow, I haven't tried that.
I'll definitely. So, actually, funny enough, because you're in Melbourne, so I can tell you the restaurants as well.
Yes.
The popular place called Somalian Kitchen. Yeah, I'll definitely do that. Yeah. So I think. For me particularly, I'm kind of like foodie like yourself. So my food changes. Like I think last week I was definitely craving a lot of Japanese. This week it's definitely a lot of Somalian food is what I'm craving. Yeah. So I think the week before that, because I was talking to one of our guests was an Ethiopian guest, so I was craving Ethiopian food because we have awesome Ethiopian restaurants as well. So Har and I after the show we were talking about injera bread and everything. So yeah, man, I think it's so definitely for the moment I'll say it's Somalian food. Long and short of it is. But I was also going to ask but people who may be listening in and maybe have follow-up questions or things we may not have covered. Where can they reach out to you?
The best would be LinkedIn. Other than that, I have recently started being a bit more active on Twitter because I found out a lot of the news. I'm not too avid Twitter user, but I see a lot of the news do come out of Twitter. So just to follow the news mostly. But I would prefer LinkedIn. I definitely try to be as proactive as I can there. So that would be the best two mediums. Yeah. And feel free to reach out if you have just want to say hi or any conversation, or if you have any questions or anything I can help with. More than happy to do so.
Awesome, and I'll put the links in the show notes as well, so people can reach out.
Thanks
and
I
guess say thank you to you as well for coming in on the show. But thanks so much, man. I really appreciate you hanging out with us, and I think I feel a lot of questions that I was being asked by people are being answered over here as well. So I'm hoping they can come back to this and always, I guess, come back and have a look at what they could be doing. And I appreciate Tom, Vineet, and Mustafa and other people who hung out with us as well and asked questions and shared their insight as well. So thanks everyone, and yeah, man. I think I hopefully I can bring you back on again, and we'll talk soon. But for everyone else, I will talk to you all next weekend. Actually, not next weekend. This Friday or Thursday. You'll see. I kind of have to keep developing the mystery of the podcast who's coming in. So I'll talk to you guys next time. We're talking about SOC and threat analyst people. So getting inspired by a malware conversation of the next person in line is a threat analyst or a SOC analyst person. So let's see how that one goes, man. But thanks, and I'm pretty sure there'll be a lot of learning that will come out of that as well. The same way there has been a lot of learnings from here. So I appreciate you coming in, man. And for everyone else, I will see you soon. And hopefully I can have Kaif again. Thanks, everyone. Peace.
Thanks for having me.